Oh, afternoon, everyone. We're gonna give our usual wait period here. We'll give about 30 seconds for people to stream and make their way into their room. But appreciate you those joining and staying on time. Welcome back to those of you that have been with us through a few of them. See a few familiar names coming in. But excellent. We're gonna give probably another 30 seconds or so and let folks come in. As always, we'll be recording our sessions today. So if you're watching us on the recording, we appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll connect with you at a different time. But we'll go ahead and get started with the session. I know a few folks continue to stream in a couple minutes after, but for those of you that were able to join us here for the live portion and on time, we appreciate it. So we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. Again, for those of you that have been joining us through it, you know who I am at this point, but for those of you just joining, my name's Anthony. I'm the Director of Admission here. I'm super excited to be wrapping up our virtual series. We've got this event today with Professor Goldstein, and we'll have our session this evening with Professor Blank to talk a little bit more about international law at Emory as well. And we'll also have our virtual hangout for the New York alumni. So if you weren't able to join us in person last week in New York, it'll be a great opportunity as well to join us online and talk with some of our alumni in that market as well. So if you have any questions on transitioning to New York, or if your goal is to work in New York, that's a great opportunity. So we encourage you to join us for that. And then we'll wrap up tomorrow with our final session with Dean Bobinski with a nice closing and an opportunity for you all to ask her questions and learn a little bit more about Emory from a higher level and all that goes on here at Emory. Again, we'll be recording our session, so you'll be able to watch as well. And of course, we'll be back in person. So we're super excited to have everybody on campus on Friday. If you're able to join us, registration has closed, but if you're able to make it and haven't signed up yet, send me an email. We can manually add you to the event if we need to. So feel free to sign up for that. But we're looking forward to seeing everybody on Friday in person. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our session today. We are very lucky to be joined by Professor Goldstein, who's going to talk with us about the Turner Environmental Clinic and all of the opportunities that you all will have through that if you have interest in environmental law and pursuing a career in that afterwards, or just have a strong interest in exploring that a little bit more during your time in law school. So Professor Goldstein is the director of the Turner Environmental Law Center. We're extremely lucky to have her. She graduated from University of Maryland with her JD, as well as her Bachelor of Science from University of North Carolina. And as I said, she is now with us here running the Turner Environmental Clinic. So I'll hand it over to Professor Goldstein to walk you through all that Turner has to offer. We'll have plenty of time for questions. So if you do have questions, please use either the chat function or the question and answer. We'll be able to unmute you and get you in front of the professor to ask your questions. But without further ado, I will hand it over to Professor Goldstein, and thank you for joining us. And we look forward to learning more about Turner.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I appreciate that really nice introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, or at least attempt to, and we'll see what happens. Can everyone, let's see. Oh goodness, let's do it this way. See that okay? I hope so.
Yeah, looks good.
Great, cool. You would think after what, 2.5 years of doing this remotely, would be better at it. So again, my name is Mindy Goldstein. I am the director of the Turner Environmental Law Clinic here at Emory. I also direct our Environmental and Natural Resources Law program. As Anthony said, I went to undergraduate at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. I don't know if any of y'all watched the game last night. It was a rough loss for the Tar Heels, but a great season nonetheless. And after law school, went to the University of Maryland for, or after undergrad, went to University of Maryland for law school. After law school, practiced commercial real estate law at a large law firm where I focused on environmental liability and commercial real estate transactions, and then joined Emory's faculty in 2008. and have been here ever since. I'm going to spend today's conversation really about the Turner Environmental Law Clinic, but I want to take a quick second and situate that clinic within our larger environmental and natural resources law program. So the program itself is a robust and nationally recognized program that offers law students a wide range of opportunities. We have a pretty These are courses that you can mainly take as a second and third year law student, although environmental law, the kind of big survey course, is offered for 1Ls as an elective. I just got to notice that my internet's unstable, so y'all let me know if I ever pause out. So anyways, a bunch of different courses, all of which help build on your environmental legal framework. In addition to those courses, we also offer volunteer opportunities, ways to get engaged with the environmental bar and environmental organizations. And then finally, we offer experiential opportunities, ways to begin to practice environmental law. There are two big ways that we offer it here at Emory. One is through our externship program. And we offer between, depending on how you count, 18 and 20 different environmental externship opportunities. And those range from working with EPA or the federal government to working in-house at Coca-Cola or Home Depot, focusing on their environmental issues, to working on public interest environmental issues at various different public interest environmental law firms like the Southern Environmental Law Center. So externships are one way to begin to practice environmental law, and the Turner Environmental Law Clinic is another. And so that's really what I want to talk about today, is the opportunities we present at the Turner Environmental Law Clinic. Here on your screen, you can see two different pictures. The picture on the right is some clinic students outside of a courthouse about to argue a pretty big case regarding nuclear waste. And on the left, the woman on the front is our client, and the students are behind her at a zoning hearing. So the clinic is a public interest environmental law firm housed within the law school and staffed primarily by law students of free legal work. And we work on a wide range of different issues. And the students are at the forefront of these issues. They are the ones talking with the clients, negotiating the transactional documents, drafting the legal briefs. This work is driven by students. And so because of that, we think about our work in a slightly different way than other nonprofit environmental organizations may. So I want to take a second to show you kind of how we think about our work and what we do and how you can become involved in it. So really, our mission is threefold. It's to work towards sustainable solutions, right? That's the protect and restore the environment part of our mission. It's a common mission for basically any public interest environmental organization. In addition, it's contributing to the future of the field. And by that, I mean training the next generation of environmental attorneys. So whenever we take on a new case or tackle a new problem, we're doing that with our students in mind. We're thinking, is this an issue that they may encounter as soon as they graduate? Will this be something that allows them to have a unique voice and a strong seat at any environmental table? And the final thing we do is cultivate community. We try to become good and helpful partners, collaborators, co-generators of solutions. We're not in this work in isolation. So the sustainable solutions part is really at the heart of our work. Our work focuses on three separate areas: promoting sustainable energy, or fighting against what we consider to be not clean or wise energy choices. For many of you who are from areas outside of Atlanta, this may be where you've heard a lot of our heard of the clinic. We get a lot of national media coverage about this work. You could find some of our work in the New York Times, in the Boston Globe, and the Economist. The LA Times just wrote a story about one of our representations. So this is kind of on a national scale. And while we do a bunch of different things, the two areas we're predominantly focusing on today include promoting solar power and the smart development of solar. So expanding solar in a smart way that provides for protection of prime agricultural land and forests, and ensures that the siting of solar infrastructure is done in an equitable way. We also challenge and help the government think about nuclear waste. So we spend a lot of time fighting what we consider to be unlawful nuclear waste storage proposals, but also work closely with Congress, the Department of Energy, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission on siting nuclear waste facilities. So energy is one. The second big bucket is food systems. We are very interested in promoting regenerative agriculture and building local food systems. And we're interested in every step of the process. So we work on how food is grown, where food is grown, who's growing that food. We promote equitable systems that allow historically discriminated against farmers to have access to land. We think about urban agriculture. We think about suburban agriculture. We think about reimagining our food system and supply chain. We think about how it's grown, sequestering carbon. We think about how it's harvested, transported, and who's buying it, working with multiple different organizations on food procurement policies. And then we think about food waste, what we can do with the food that we're not consuming, how we can get it to folks who need it. And if we can't do that, how we can ensure that it stays out of our landfills and can instead be turned into either compost or renewable natural gas through anaerobic digesting. And the final piece of our representations is natural resource protection. For many of you, this is what you think of when you think of environmental law. It's bugs and bunnies and trees and rivers. It's making sure that our environment is healthy and productive. We do this work at 3 different levels. Some of our work is local, and by local, I mean Atlanta, but I also mean here at Emory. In fact, Emory is one of our largest local clients. And we work with Emory on issues including their food procurement policies, to building an anaerobic digester, to getting solar panels on our rooftops. And we also work with the city of Atlanta, another huge client of ours, and helping to build some of this stuff out. Another third of our work is regional, which we define as the Southeast. And the final third is national. Perhaps what, again, our clinic is most known for is that national level work. And then the final set of thirds I want to talk about really quickly is the skills that we develop in the clinic. A third of our work is transactional in nature. So for those of you who are interested in our transactional program, want to become transactional lawyers, there's a lot of transactional work in the environmental space, negotiating and drafting contracts, leases, memorandums of understanding, and the like. Another third is litigation. Our litigation begins almost always before an agency doing administrative advocacy work and ends in the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. That is the primary court in which we argue. And then the final third is policy. We're interested in shaping policy at the local, federal, or local, state, and federal levels. We work with our United States Congress, we work with local zoning boards, and we work with everyone in between. So here is a picture of some of my students together with our co-counsel from the Natural Resources Defense Council in front of, obviously in DC, and we are talking to members of Congress in this picture about ensuring better access to information through a law called FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. But what's important, and what I want to drive home, is that every year the work that we do is to build not just a better environment, but also to train y'all. And so we're really thinking about what skills do you need? How can we get you as students to the forefront of these conversations? How can we ensure that you have the experiences that you need so that you can hit the ground running on day one of your legal career to begin to affect change? Again, we do that in a wide variety of different ways. And the final thing I just want to talk about is the cultivating community. I've just thrown up on the screen some of our partners and co-counsel and clients and folks that we do this work with every day. It's important to me to build a robust partnership. None of these issues can be tackled alone. The issues that we confront every day, climate change and resilient food systems, they require a lot of different folks working at a lot of different levels, all pulling in the same direction. And so again, we spend a lot of time partnering with others. These are some of the folks that we partner with. In addition to the folks on this screen, I should also mention we partner with other environmental law clinics across the country. Right now, most of our partnerships are with the environmental law clinics at Harvard, Georgetown, and Maryland, but I'm certainly open to and consider partnerships in other places depending on where our representations are. So just like all the other law clinics that you've heard about or perhaps have heard about, the Turner Environmental Law Clinic is a course here at Emory Law School. It is a 3-credit course for a grade. Students apply and are selected to work in the clinic for at least 1 semester. Most students choose to work in it for 2. It builds upon foundational information that students can get in environmental law, in administrative law, or environmental advocacy, all of which I'm happy to talk through further. And again, what's the hallmark of clinical education, and one of the things that I think makes the Turner Clinic so much fun, is direct and close interaction between students and myself and our staff attorney, to really think through these problems together, to learn as we go, to reflect upon what we're learning, and to continue to promote environmental protection and environmental justice. And that's kind of where I want to leave you guys with this final thought. I've talked a lot about the environment, or a little bit about the environment in our work. In all of this work, in every single thing that we do, we think about the community that is impacted. We think about the community that may be harmed by pollution, that may be harmed by climate change, that may benefit from a change in our land use structures, right? We think about the communities that are at the heart of our work. So we have an environmental justice-based lens within which we do everything. So some clinics you'll see have a separate bucket for environmental justice work, this idea that communities or certain communities shouldn't be disproportionately impacted by environmental harm. Here at the Turner Clinic, we imbue that into everything that we do. It is our guiding light, North Star, and primary driving principle in the work that we do. So I know that was a lot of information. That was kind of quick. So what I thought I would do is stop sharing my screen and exit out and see if I could take some questions from all of you guys. If that works for you, Anthony.
Great. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for all of that information. I know it's super helpful for the students just to kind of get a grasp of everything that you all do and the opportunities there. So like I said, we've got plenty of time for your questions. Please don't be shy. If you have them, feel free to raise your hand, type them in the chat box, send them in through the Q&A function. We'll be more than happy to unmute you and get you the opportunity to ask your question up here. I'm going to start out and warm us up with 1 or 2 questions that our most students ask pretty well, but and I see Jackson has a similar related question, so we're going to get to Jackson. We'll get to you in just a minute. But Professor, I know one question that students always have is, as a 1L, obviously you won't be able to get into the clinic and work there, but what can students do during their first year to help them start preparing, to make themselves more appealing or give them the best shot to get into the clinic during their 2L and 3L years?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And there's several different things that you all can do. So our Environmental Law Practice Society. So there are various different practice societies offered at Emory that are student run, and that really focus on specific practice areas, as the name may imply. The Environmental Law Society is incredibly active. And I am the faculty advisor for that society. We host multiple different lectures. We bring in practicing attorneys to talk about what it means to practice environmental law. They organize volunteer excursions, everything from hikes to river cleanups. It's a great way to get started. It's a great way to start to know who in Atlanta is doing this work. And it's a great way to begin to build that framework of knowledge. The second thing I would say is, as the second semester of your 1L year, you're allowed to take an elective. You get to choose one course to take. environmental law is an option. It is one of those electives. And so many students who come to Emory super interested in environmental work choose to take environmental law as their 1L elective. That certainly sets you up with additional knowledge and information about the environmental legal framework. With that said, I don't expect anyone to come to the clinic with a complete understanding of our environmental laws. They're a mess, y'all. They're a total mess. It's a hard subject to wrap your head around. We spend a lot of time talking about what they are and what they could be. So the final thing I would say that you can do is just pay attention to what's going on around you. Come to the clinic to talk about current environmental issues, problems that you see arising, thoughts that you have about what institutions and individuals can do to begin to address environmental work. All of those help prepare you to be a strong candidate in clinic student.
Excellent. Yeah, so let's go to Jackson now. Jackson, you should be up if you're able to unmute yourself. If you want to ask your question, I know that kind of dovetails nicely with what we were just talking about the selection process and all of that. So, Jackson, if you're able to unmute yourself, go ahead. And okay, no worries. I see him in the chat says he can't talk right now, so no worries. Definitely understand that. But the question that Jackson was asking, and I'll just read aloud for the group so they can understand. But the question is essentially how competitive is the selection process to the clinic? So Professor, maybe you can touch on that a little bit, and maybe in general, specifically, kind of what you look for in students coming into the clinic.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Jackson. Thank you so much. And I should just now say my dog is, I guess it's raining too hard for him. He's a little bit freaking out, y'all. So if you hear a dog in the background, that's Merlin. He's 13. He's an old man, and he's just hanging in there. So the competitiveness of the clinic. What I tell students is, if you want to take the Turner Environmental Law Clinic, apply early and often. You can begin applying first semester of your second year. And if you keep applying, I'll get you in. It will happen. It may not be the first time you apply, but we'll figure out a way to ensure that you have this experience. Again, as long as you keep coming back and keep trying. There are a variety of different things that students think about when applying to the clinic, and a variety of different things that we think about when building a clinic. So the first thing I would say is, for those of you interested in environmental law and the clinic, come see me before the application period. Sometime during your first year, make an appointment with me during office hours and let's talk. I would love to learn more about what you think you want to do, what you hope to experience, and I can help you not just think about the clinic, but also think about what courses we're going to be offering and when you can take them, what externships are available, what summer positions are available. And we can really spend some time thinking through the right career path for you, the right legal experience for you, because again, y'all are driving this thing and everyone has different goals. And so what makes the most sense for each student may differ. So my favorite thing to do, the best part of directing the environmental program, is those conversations. So please find your way to my office. All right, so what do I look for? What do we look for, my staff attorney and myself, when we build our clinic? We look for diversity of thought and interests. Our clients get the best representation when the most different views are in one room, kind of pushing towards the same solution. And so what I'm looking for is some students who are interested in transactional work, and some who are interested in litigation, and some who are interested in policy. And I'm looking for some who have a science background, and some who have a history background, and some, right? Like, it's just this diversity of thought, diversity of experience that I have found builds the most robust clinic. And so if you don't get into the clinic one semester, it may not mean that you're not incredibly qualified and awesome. It just may mean that when we were building this kind of unique mix to complement the representations that we had, or we have, that we were looking for a certain direction or approach. So again, all of those things matter. In addition, I'm looking for someone who's excited by the work. If y'all can't tell, I love this stuff so much. I want to hang out with folks who love it too. So people who are excited by the work, excited by the opportunities is the next thing. I do not look for someone who's been doing environmental work from the day they were born. There are some folks who are like, when I was 3, I knew I wanted to be an environmental lawyer, and those folks are great. I want them in my clinic too. But if you're new to environmental law, that's not a problem at all. The skills that we learn, the tools that we learn are really translatable. And so you'll learn in legislation and regulation, one of the first classes that you take, that the law is really built, at least in America, on agencies. And environmental law is just an agency practice. It's an administrative law practice. And so you can come to it with a bunch of different areas of interest and still be really impactful and successful. So that was a lawyer answer, probably a little bit muddled. So I'll give you, Jackson, the numbers. About 30% to 40% is how many folks get into the clinic each semester.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks, Jackson, for the question. Next up, I want to bring up Zachary. She's got a fantastic question. And Zachary, I remember very vividly reading about this in your personal statement and being super impressed by your work. So wanted to bring you up, but good to see you again. And yeah, the floor is all yours if you want to ask your question.
Hi, Professor Goldstein. So I wrote about the fund, the Turner Clinic's collaboration with the Working Farm Fund, and Emory's work to do land leasing and contracting with Georgia farmers. I work in agriculture. I'm in my car, but I'm at the farm right now. So I was just wondering if you have any updates on the work with the fund. I'm specifically, I primarily work with socially disadvantaged farmers. Anytime I hear about a wonderful a wonderful initiative like this, I'm asking sort of, what are the opportunities to infuse it with equity from the start, to sort of acknowledge, Georgia and the USDA's history of excluding farmers or kind of keeping resources limited in certain communities. So I'm really interested in, what possible opportunities to work in the environmental clinic, but through the lens of equity.
Yeah, Zachary, thank you so much, one, for your work. Two, I'm so excited to learn more. So we'll have to connect offline so you can tell me more about what it is exactly that you're doing. But yes, I'm more than happy to share a little bit more about the Working Farms Fund with folks who maybe are less aware, and then Zachary give you the follow-up that you're asking for. So as many of you may know, it is very, very, very difficult to buy a farm. It's incredibly expensive. And therefore, most farmers have farmland because they inherited it. It turns out that makes our system incredibly racist, because for the longest time, only white people could own farmland. And so what we have right now is a generation of aging farmers. I believe the average age of a farmer is somewhere in their 60s, and aging white farmers at that. And in an effort to diversify our farm network, to build a resilient farm system, we need to think about that land access piece, right? We need to reimagine the way that we acquire farmland. At the same time, Atlanta is unique amongst many cities in that it is not geographically confined from growth. Many cities can only expand so much because they hit a river or a mountain range or the ocean. Not Atlanta. We can sprawl till our heart's desire. And in fact, for those of you who are interested in urban land planning, you may have seen Atlanta as the #1 issue of what not to do, right? We keep sprawling forever. And so what that means is here in Atlanta and within 50 to 100 miles of Atlanta, prime agricultural land. Agriculture is Georgia's #1 industry. Prime agricultural land is at threat of development. Is at threat of becoming the next subdivision and strip mall and the like. And so the Conservation Fund, a national nonprofit organization, came to the clinic and said, we've got an idea that we are going to hatch, and we'd love your creative legal minds to help us think through this. What if we go within 100 miles of the city of Atlanta, identify prime agricultural land in threat of development, acquire that land, place a farmer on that land with something we call a patient path to ownership. So give this farmer some time to build a farm, build up their farm business, and they will identify farmers, historically disadvantaged farmers, farmers who haven't otherwise had access to farmland, put them on this land, give them this patient path to ownership right before they're ready to buy the farm from the Conservation Fund. The Conservation Fund will put this legal instrument on it called a conservation easement that permanently protects it from development. It also decreases the cost of the property because it's no longer able to be developed, and then sell it to that farmer for a decreased cost. Super cool. We protect farmland at threat of development. We constrain sprawl. We get new farmers onto farmland, and we begin to build a resilient local food system, a food system within 100 miles of Atlanta that can provide sustainably grown, healthy food for our community. So incredible. So the clinic was thrilled and honored to play a part in that project, helping think through the legal documents that needed to be put in place. And it's happening, right? It's happening, and farmers are excited, and farmers are getting onto this land. And you may have seen some coverage. The initial launch of that was covered quite widely. The New York Times did an article, some other folks did, everyone's psyched. So then the farmers get on this land and they're like, uh-oh, we've still got another problem. As great as all this is, as incredible as, you know, the program is that you've built, we're still having difficulty acquiring small business loans, financial support for our growing farm businesses, because we don't have the credit history that we need, because we've not built a business like this before, because not just because structural racism pervades not just land access, but right lending institutions as well. And I was actually presenting this conundrum to the Turner Environmental Law Clinic's advisory board when Keenan Howitt, who is Emory's Associate Vice President of Equity, Sustainability, and Inclusion at the university, also a clinic board member, also an environmental lawyer, was like, hey, I got an idea. What if Emory commits to purchasing all the food that's grown on these farms? Could they take that commitment to the bank? Would lenders then give them the money? And I thought, I don't know, maybe. And so that's what we did. We went to the bank and we're like, hey, banks, if Emory promises to buy all this, because I should say Emory is the 6th largest food purchaser in our state. We're the single largest employer in our city. We've got purchasing power, and we're committed to 75% local and sustainable food by 2025 on campus. So we have this huge desire, this huge need, and it worked. The bank said, yeah, this commitment is something that really works. So now what the clinic is doing is working with Emory in our food purchasing program through Bon Appetit and these farmers to build this network of food purchasing agreements. So that's the last thing that happened, or the last big kind of push you may have seen, Zachary, in the media. But I'm thrilled to say we're not done yet. A new Working Farms Fund program is, Atlanta was just the pilot, and it's going crazy. And other law clinics and universities were like, hey, we want this in our community. And other farmers are like, hey, we want to do this. And so the Working Farms Fund, through the Conservation Fund that's running this whole thing, is launching another program in Chicago. It's just launched. And I think you can expect 3 to 4 more to be announced pretty soon. So this model of matching farmers to land, decreasing the food or the property cost, permanently protecting it, and ensuring a market, all as a kind of a package deal, is really what this is about. And it's working. So I'm so excited. So that's that piece, Zachary, but there are other pieces. So that's really for larger scale farmers. The farms in that program are 50 to 100 acres or more. And so for some of our smaller scale farmers, we are also doing different work through a variety of organizations, one of which you may be interested in is called Global Growers. So happy to follow up on that one as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you all. And I mean, if you can't get excited after that, I mean,
right?
Why
it's
not?
So cool. I know.
Excellent. Well, I didn't see any other questions come in, so I think we can start to wrap up. If you have another question, please type that in the chat box now, or let us know. Oh wait, actually, okay, let's go one more question to Jackson, and then we'll start wrapping up. So Jackson, I know you can't talk, so I'll read this one out aloud, but Professor Jackson would like to know, how does the Turner Clinic help people find jobs in the field after graduation?
Yeah, so that's the right question to ask. And I can't say that the clinic itself helps you find a job. The really difficult truth is you got to do that on your own, right? Like I can lead you to water, but that's as far as I can take you. In the end, it's up to you. But what I can tell you is the clinical experience has been incredibly valuable for our students in landing environmental jobs. In fact, I was on a call with an EPA attorney who was hiring for this cycle, and he said he only hires students who have taken environmental law clinics. because that experience is so valuable. So the things that the clinic can do, one is provide you with real world experience, which is what employers increasingly are looking for, right? They don't want to just know that you've read about certain things or you've learned about certain things, although that's critically important. But they want to know you've done that and you've applied it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is through our network. That slide that I showed towards the end of my quick talk about who our partners are, those are also our employers. And so I can say many of my students have been offered jobs from our clients, from our co-counsel, and although it kills me to say this, from our opposing counsel as well. I've had students make an argument and the opposing counsel hire them on the spot. So exposure is the second way. So the skills training is the first, exposure is the second. The other important thing that I want to mention is when folks think about environmental jobs, they often put them into three different buckets. Public interest is one bucket. That's the bucket that the clinic works in. That's protecting and restoring the environment for the benefit of the public. A second bucket is government work, administrative work, writing the laws, enforcing the laws. And then the third bucket is what we call corporate compliance, ensuring that the corporation or industry that you work with does not violate the law in the first place, gets the proper permits, does what it's supposed to do. And what I think is critically important is to realize that any environmental experience positions you for any of those jobs. So while some of my students leave the clinic to go on to public interest jobs, not all of them do. Many leave to go to government jobs or to corporate compliance jobs. And so this exposure kind of translates into multiple different fields. And then the final thing I'd say is I think getting to know faculty members is critically important in your career search. That's how you get the recommendations and the networking and the exposure that you need. And so the other great thing about clinics is to work one-on-one with faculty that you may not otherwise have such close and constant communication with in a way that allows me to write really strong and personal recommendations because I really truly know your work. And one final way I would be remiss not to say is we have an advisory board. The clinic has an advisory board made up of prominent environmental lawyers on all sides of the issue, as well as prominent environmental scientists. Each semester, my students present to our advisory board, and our advisory board are also huge fans of the clinic and our work, obviously, and also very great employers of the work that we do. One final thing to note, and I don't know if this is of interest to anyone, but we are about to launch an environmental equity, diversity, and inclusion initiative through our environmental law program that will offer scholarships and stipends to students who may bring diversity to the environmental bar. More about that will be announced soon, but that will provide another pathway of exposure for folks who may be interested in exploring environmental careers.
Excellent, thanks. Yeah, that's all great information. And yeah, like the professor said, Jackson, I think that's a really important question to ask. But you know, you'll have plenty of opportunities to network and meet with all those folks here at Emory and across the country as well. Excellent. So we'll start wrapping up. Professor, I usually like to end on one question to you, just about what you've been at Emory now for a minute, but what brought you to Emory in the beginning, and what's been keeping you here through your time and your work and at Turner?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to say it. So as I mentioned, I joined the law school in 2008. I don't know if any of y'all will remember this, but there was a big real estate crisis around that time. And I was doing commercial real estate law, environmental liability in it. And it was a really depressing industry to be in at the time. And so I said to the partners at the law firm that I was working at, give me 1 year off. I'm going to take a 1 year leave of absence and go to Emory. Emory was looking for someone to work in their environmental law clinic. And I said, just give me 1 year. I'm going to hug a few trees, right? I'm going to do some great public interest work. And then I'm going to come back to the law firm revived and refreshed and ready to go. And I never came back. And the reason is I absolutely love this work. I think that working in an environmental law clinic is truly the best of all worlds. Our clients are incredible. The work we're doing is so critically important. The time is now, right? We're butting up against a lot of really critical deadlines, and no one person is going to be able to do this alone. And so, in my opinion, the biggest impact I can have is to train an entire generation of folks to get out there and do that. And it's that work that gets me excited every day. And now, since I've been here, gosh, what, 14, 15, oh, I don't know. I'm bad at math, that's why I do well. But I've been here for a minute. Seeing my former students' names running the show, doing the stuff, making the change. Oh man, that's what it's all about. I'm increasingly impressed by the skills that my students possess, and my former students, the impact that they're having is so great. So for all of those reasons, and Emory's awesome in my opinion. And their environmental commitment in particular is really important to me. So for those of you who may not know, we're rated 6th in the country for sustainability for universities. The walking the talk piece is very important to me, and what we're doing here at Emory is so exciting as well. So that's why I haven't left yet.
Great. Well, we're super fortunate to have you and all the work that you do. So thank you so much for taking the time and talking with the students and letting them know. Especially appreciate all the passion that you bring and all the strong work that you do for our students. So thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you to you all for.
I would just say for the folks at home, my email address is it's all over the website. Like just type environment into Emory Law's website and my name will pop up 1,000 times. Feel free to email me with any questions that you may have.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have any difficult finding that, shoot me an email. I know you all have my email address. I'm happy to make the connection for you over to Professor Goldstein. Professor Goldstein, any other final closing words before we hang up?
No, I think that's it. But I look forward to seeing you all in class at some point in time.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. We appreciate it. And we'll see you around to some of the other sessions. But thank you all again for joining, and we'll see you soon. Welcome to Emory.
Bye.